Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3. Yeah, stand by, stand by, stand by. We're gonna start just soon. I'm readjusting some stuff. Always readjusting, always adding, always doing new, kind of new features. Oh, new features. I also had a light go out. Replace that light with another light to keep me separated. I didn't get a chance to check to see how that looked. All right, give me a second, folks. I'll be right with you. Let's put on the timer, but I think I'm gonna have to put it on a little bit longer. Hold on for a second. Hold on, I'll just stand by right here. Just stand by with me. Just stand by with me, and then I'll turn on the timer soon. Give me just a second, folks. start to brighten other people's world with a smile, all of a sudden the world brightens up around you. It's like reciprocal. It's so interesting, and it's something in psychology that I don't want to talk about more because I don't have the studies in front of me, but it's something about us having a good attitude and keeping a good attitude around the people that we are having or around with that makes us so much better at whatever we want to do. Let's stop fighting beliefs. Stop fighting beliefs and let's try to find common ground. We're all on this planet together. According to statistics, it's the person who's mediocre that actually advances further. I'm more interested in the top 10 richest men in the world, you know, and Bezos, who I can't get over this joke. I've been saying this joke, and then somebody says it on the Oscars. You know what I'm saying? The man can get divorced and is still the richest man in the she took half and he's still richest man. Come on, Bezos, you got this. You know what time it is, folks. That's right. It's time for more In the Hot Box with Doc Rio, and I am here in the Hot Box with you today to talk to you more about motivated. What does it feel like? How we doing today, folks? How we doing today, folks? If there's anybody in the crowd and you want to say something in the crowd, in the chats, whether that be on Facebook, Instagram, Periscope, which will be on Twitter. I may not be able to see the Twitter chats until later. YouTube, Twitch, and of course, right here on Mixer. Please feel free to say something right in the chat. If you're here with me live on Mixer, please go ahead and say something in the chat. I actually saw something from Periscope the other day in the chat, so I was shocked to see that. I believe I can also see YouTube, and I believe I can see I don't know if I can see Twitch chat, but just yet. But if you are in any of the chats and you are there and you're watching, feel free to say something, you know, ask a question, anything you need, that's fine with me. If not, if you just want to sit and lurk, feel free to sit there and do nothing. Hey, that's what lurkers do. I love that. You know, not that I love that, but I love people who sit there and get education and get information. You know what I'm saying? Because as long as you're getting information, then you're gaining knowledge. You know what I mean? You're gaining power, you're gaining knowledge, you're getting things that you will need to continually be successful in your life, in our world. So with that being said, we're here today to talk to you more about staying motivated. And if you like what you see, please, if you like what you see, there's either a follow or subscribe button down below. Please go ahead and hit that follow or subscribe button. And also make sure you like or dislike it. You know what I mean? If you don't like what you see, go ahead and hit that. If you dislike it and you don't want to hit subscribe and you don't want to hit follow, go ahead. Don't hit follow. Don't hit subscribe. But if you like it and you do like what I'm talking about, and you want to hear more of it, please hit subscribe, hit follow. And if you're on YouTube or Mixer, please make sure you hit that bell for future notifications. Now, we're going to get right into it, so stay tuned after a word from our sponsors at Push Button Entertainment. This is Doc. I'll be right back right after this. Look at us up on Doc Rio TV.
If you hustle on the streets, a way to move drugs. It's loyalty over love. If you bang in the street and you blood or you cuz, it's loyalty over love. If you roll 20 deep on your way to the club, it's loyalty over love. Only function with the niggas that's riding just because. It's loyalty over love. Bad news nigga in this bitch with his own flow. Reason why I'm eating, cause I'm going where you won't go. These niggas all lame, tell me something I don't know. How this nigga co-sign and his flow is only so-so. And that nigga so bitch, he cross-dress and dance go-go. Me, I new kicks, Levi's and fresh polos. I dare to be different, you can tell by the logos. Blowing on the best vines I can find out no ho. Talking about love, I ain't got it for no ho. Don't take it to the drama, couple niggas tucking fofos. I ain't concerned with your weight, I can get it by the boatloads. Cali to Virginia, I'm connected, bitch, on both coasts. Rims, no 10.
Push button, baby. on Doc Rio TV.
All right, we back. I hope you like that. That's a little bit of loyalty of love from Push Button Entertainment, and that was Edric Stitz, the CEO of Push Button Entertainment, actually on the microphone. That was his verse, his hook, and with him was Skrilla Scrooge on the in the background. And if you continue to hear that song and you go out there and look for more of that song, you'll find the Skrilla Scrooge verse as well. I believe this was actually produced and edited by Skrilla Scrooge as well. Skrilla Scrooge is the artist we have at Push Button Entertainment, signed on Island Def Jam. So, hey, that's how that worked, between the gang, couple rides, keep it going, keep slanging things. So that's how we do. But right now we're talking about staying motivated, and you know what? That actually helps me to stay more motivated. Thinking about that time and thinking about the stuff we did and the things we had to go through to get to where we were at. Wow. And that was less than 10 years ago. To know that we've all came a long way from where we were, and our journey remains to keep going. As I always say, the journey's long, it's never gone. As a matter of fact, why don't I just do that real quick? Nah, journey's on the keyboard. Psych! We're going to get into this lesson real quick. So, without further ado, I might do a song at the end of the lesson. You never know. But without further ado, let's go ahead and jump in to this lesson. This lesson is all about staying motivated. Here we go. I think. I had to reset things because I got a new setup for how we're going to do this with the other computers. And I was like, why am I struggling? And I don't need to struggle. This is all about staying motivated, folks. And the reason why this one's all about staying motivated is because last week I was going to actually do this lesson. Instead, I did Let It Ring, trying to see if there was a way for us to kind of let peace ring. I think we missed out on a lot of things I think a lot of us missed out on a lot of things in our surrounding communities, in our neighborhoods, in our lives that we could have been doing because of the tragedies we've seen lately, and how we could have been, really fighting to regain, using that energy. I'm not trying to say it wasn't constructive, because it was. It was constructive energy out there. There was a lot of it. There was a lot of destructive energy as well. But we could have been using that energy in a more unified manner between all entities out there, and being more constructive and being more and building things up. You know what I mean? And it's one of those things in life and there's one of those worlds that we live in that is just simply hard for us to, I guess, understand or fathom the stuff that we really go through with each other until we all are standing unified and sharing that. I think a lot of people hold back some of the things, as I was talking about before in like the Rich Dad Poor Dad, where, it's not wise in some families to speak about money at the dinner table. It's not wise for certain people to do certain things in business because, they should be looking for a job and not looking for a business to buy. You know what I mean? Like, I think one of the lines was study hard so you can get work for the right company. And the Rich Dad was study hard so you can find the right company to buy. You know what I mean? The whole mentality are two different spectrums. And I think most of our mentality in America, as it seems, as I see from what's out there, most of the mentality in America is all about trying to figure out a way out of this struggle, trying to figure out a way of this great divide we call the rat race, or what was the rat race. And what's changed since this pandemic, what has become more of a struggle than it is a race, what has become more of a great divide between those who have and the have-nots. And I think a lot of people on the riot list were on the have-not list. Don't get me wrong. Part of the riots were dissension between people who don't like the way this country is going. And the other part of those riots was an opportunity to gain from chaos, from, you know, I used that before, and it's sad that it was almost predictive, you know, of what was to come. And if you don't mind, if you don't know what I'm talking about, go back to my past lessons, episode 2.5 and episode 2.6 this season. This season is all climb up. You can start to see those lessons on YouTube, and before they disappear, you know what I mean? Because as certain lessons come in, well, these are going to be up there for a little while longer because they're new. But I might want to check last season's too, back to the basics. Because as I begin to cannibalize those lessons, they won't be here as longer. And so I'll be talking about lessons, but you'll have to join the program in order to get them. So you got to understand where I'm going, because these lessons are all about mindset first. This is the second stage of mindset. The second stage of actually applying mindset to action. And then, you know, there are other stages afterwards, you know, how to actually scale from that point on. Because scaling has to do with other things. I know there are other things that I'm not doing right now. I'm doing these actions that we're talking about here because I've been building on these. And so after I've been doing these and seeing that they're successful, I'm turning them into lessons. And so that's why I had these back to back, because I saw them in succession work and I saw them how they worked. And even though I'm still struggling with some areas of them, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, there's a lot of self-doubt still going on. There's a lot of depression still going on. There's a lot of, you know, stuff with post-traumatic stress still going on that I struggle with. And trying to work with that and work in a business type setting, or work with that and work in a self-employed type setting. Sometimes the anxiety and depression and stress get in the way, you know, and you have to learn how to manage that. You know, for me, I've learned that, you know, maybe it's about a path of looking at where I will be in the future. What will you be doing in the future and what I will be doing in the future are two different things. But if we're focused on what our future will be, instead of just saying, we're just going through a day-by-day rat race, if we have a vision for our future and we apply ourselves as to how we can get there, when we do get there, we're ready for the things that come. And that's what kills me about this, because I'm not really ready for the things that come, but yeah, I've been ready. A lot of people see me streaming everywhere. This has been a dream. This has been a dream I've had since Yahoo Messenger. All right. A lot of people are like, you've been on the Yah Elite. Yeah, I was a Yah Elite guy. I was in several chat rooms and I wanted to see how I can talk to people everywhere, how I can stream to people everywhere. And I'm still not at the level that I wanted to be, because back then I was streaming to 1,000 people, chatting to 1,000 people at once. You know, I've gone from chatting to 1,000 people to chatting to hundreds of people to doing other stuff and working on film and television and other stuff, and then becoming a reporter and a journalist, and then going from there to talking to several people to sharing things and helping other people get bigger than me, way bigger than me. There are people that are so big out there that I've worked with that I'm in shock. I'm like, wow, you guys are banging it. You guys are banging it out there. You know what I mean? And some of these people used to call me, you know, think I was one of the hardest working people in the industry. Yeah, I was. I was one of the hardest working people in the industry. I wasn't using one thing. What's that one thing I always talk about we should be using, folks? Are you with me? Are you with me, folks? What's that one thing I always talk about we should be using? And I don't have one with me right now. It's all over there. I do. I got several. I'm gonna just put one right here just for the sake of having it. Okay, you see what I'm saying? Just put one here for the sake of having it. Wait. Am I live? I'm live. How come this ain't picking me up live? How come this is picking up something else? How come I don't see what's live in here? Okay. I should be seeing what's live in here. Okay, now I'm seeing what's live in here, and I'm seeing what y'all are seeing. And now that computer's lagging. That's very interesting. Okay, now it's working fine. Oh, man. See, that just weird. That just weird what happened. It was playing a whole nother video. It was playing like last week's video. Still on the screen. It was still attached to yesterday's video. Anyway. But I didn't have a pen. I didn't have a pen in my hand, or I wasn't using a pen. And I was working really, really, really hard and not realizing that the pen was my passage to greatness. The pen was my ability to work less hard, but to really grow and scale my business. The pen is mightier than hard labor. And we're going to talk about that more in the next lesson, all right? But in this lesson, like I said, we're talking about staying motivated. And the reason why we're talking about staying motivated is because we got to relook at where we're at, where we're sitting, what we're doing, and where we're going, all right? You know what I'm saying? And if we look at what we're doing, where we're going, and what we're sitting in, and what's going on in our lives, we'll start to realize that we do have a lot of problems. Sorry, I didn't spend enough time in makeup and wardrobe. You know, I ran through makeup and wardrobe, and I forgot to finish putting on my makeup. Chapstick. But anyway, we went through these passages and we didn't pay attention. We didn't pay attention on our way through these passages to one main piece or one main tool. Some of us have. I know I have, because it's what I do. I realize that, look, if we have any problem in the world, any problem in the world can be solved in any medium. All right? Any medium in the world can be used to solve any problem. That sounds funny, right? The first medium is this one right here. This is the first medium that we have. The ability to be able to communicate with people through pen and paper. Because one, the pen and pad is great for a couple of things. One, the pen and pad gives us this ability to leave information forever. All right. I consider the keyboard a pen and pad too, but leave information forever. Now, when we imprint that information, we not only write that information, sometimes we think that information, most cases when we write that information, we think that information, but sometimes while we're thinking that information, we say that information. So we invoke a three-dimensional aspect of imprinting that information upon ourselves by seeing it, saying it, and hearing it. I call it the see it, say it, hear it method. All right. I use it all the time. That is actually how I remember people's names. You know, once I see it, say it, hear it, I usually remember their name. Maybe a couple of weeks later, I might forget them if I don't see them all the time. But trust me, I actually remembered something about their name. You know, and in most cases, I'm really close because I'm terrible. I just usually tell people, look, I'm terrible. I don't remember names. What's your name again? I don't have a problem with that. I could talk to them for hours about the same thing, about many different things. But I know that there is a soul that I pay attention to in that person. There are things about that person that I pay attention to more than anything else, that their name is not as important to me as it should be. So I've understood that for other people, intent versus impact, that their name is important to them. So if my intent is to give them something of pleasure, or show them how important they are to me. You want to give somebody this pleasurable feeling when you want to show them how important they are to you. It is best that I learn their name. It is best that I maintain that understanding of knowing their name, right? So with that being said, I know that if I imprint their name upon me, I will remember their name and say it more. I can remember their soul and their name and make them feel much better about whatever situation we're in. And I can, therefore, if I wanted to, influence them into something that will help them help themselves or help them do what they do. Therefore, that to me makes perfectly good sense. Now, I'm not here to influence people. Yeah, I guess I am here to influence people, but I'm not here with the idea, oh, I'm here just to influence people. No, I'm here to share information. That information can be used any which way people want to use it. But I want to make sure I get that information out there to people, because if I do that, then the knowledge they can grasp it, the knowledge you can grasp it is just invaluable. And so that invaluable knowledge becomes powerful. Especially, I was talking with another Matador, that's California State University Northridge student or alumni. Not sure which way that's working yet. I got to ask him. But I was talking with him, and we were actually talking about the idea of having access after you graduate. This fact that they gave us this year, they actually gave us free lifetime membership to the Alumni Association, which gets us lifetime access to the library, which gets us lifetime access to discounts. And the Apple Mac store they have on campus actually has a sale every year that gives us an extra like $100 discount on top of the sales they have, the discount that we get for being a student or alum. You know what I mean? And so that is just, you have to be a student or you have to be alum to get that access. Right? You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, wow, so I mean, there are a lot of things that I researched this before, because I was like, I'm going to end up paying for the Alumni Association lifetime. Anyway, I was thinking about that a while ago, but I had already received a free year because I worked at the University Student Union. They paid for my free year. So I was like, okay, after that free year's up, I'll pay so I'm already on free, and then I just got another free on top of free due to a pandemic. So with that free on top of free, that lifetime membership, just like my UCLA library access, is gold. They each have different access. Like there were some things I was looking for on UCLA's access that wasn't on the CSUN access. And then there were certain things I was looking for on the CSUN access that wasn't on the UCLA access. They have access to databases. They pay for access to databases, and databases have what in them? What is a database? It's a collection of data. It's a collection of data that can be used to solve any problem. Data on any medium, data within mediums, data about mediums, data on anything. Anything. Journals, science, psychology, art, lifestyles, civil disobedience. I mean, you can find anything in the databases that these colleges and institutions have. And so when people tell me, there's not a lot that you get out of these colleges and institutions. Yeah, you can pay for these databases every year on your own, but you total that shit up every year. If you actually total that stuff up every year and you look at what you paid in college to get it and the education you get through that database access and maybe the lifetime membership, add that all up and you start adding them both together, you'll see that college actually benefits you on a lot of cost on a lot of things overall. A lot of cost and a lot of access you as well get. A lot of access. So there is, but people have to pay attention to the access they get and actually utilize it. I mean, I'm not utilizing everything I should be using. I mean, I was going to say that, one of the things that I probably wouldn't use the most of is that gym. But, why not? Why not? I get a discounted gym membership and they have a Olympic style gym with a track, with a basketball court, squash and volleyball. I mean, I could play too. Pool, heated pool, heated Olympic size pool. You know what I mean? Not just that. Rooms I can rent. They're going to build a new hotel. You know what I mean? This is information that I know from being involved. And this is the stuff we're talking about. And this is access. Access. With discounts. Really good discounts. If I wanted to have a serious like discussion hall, something, I wouldn't have y'all come to a hotel. Hell no. If I wanted to do one of these discussions like, you know, like we do, guess where I'm gonna have y'all come to? Y'all gonna come down and see, son. You know what I'm saying? I might try to link up with another college or university. Because you see, to me, if I'm in another state, I should be linking it with the nearby college or university, seeing if I can get discounts through being a part of the organizations I am a part of. Why? Because I'm supporting education and I'm supporting educators who give back to their community. Give back to their community. Now, and that's part of the reason why I'm also, you know, going for the trifecta. You know, going into different towns with a CSUN, USC, and UCLA degree on your shoulders kind of really helps. Really helps. You know what I'm saying? And so having that trifecta and going around and going in different towns. Now, it doesn't help if you're pulled over by the cops. Most likely it won't help if I'm pulled over by the cops. You know, I mean, the only thing that might help, let me show you something that might help. The only thing that might actually help. Take one moment, be right back. Let me show you something that might help. The only thing that might actually help. The only thing that might actually help is this. It's a press pass. It's a press pass that says that I am a member of the U.S. Press Association, which actually gives me access to certain things. Now, I would probably be wearing this, you know what I'm saying, in my shirt. Actually, I did when I went out. I took it out with me. That's why I had it quick and close by, because I took it out to go out and do some press work. And when I was out there, I didn't like what I saw. And let's just say some of my post-traumatic stress, I'm not happy about how I felt and how I was not able to handle it, but I'm glad I was able to come back, sit here and do some things to get myself back on track. You know what I mean? I should have been better as a person of press, and I didn't do anything wrong out there. It's just how I felt emotionally and the things I had to unpack. I'm not happy about the things I had to unpack, and how it could have gone down would have been worse had I not had some intelligence about my own self. All right. And so, like I said, any medium can use any problem. If you got a problem with anything, you can find an answer to it on pretty much any medium. Or if you want to solve something, you can use pretty much any medium to make it work. You know what I'm saying? You just have to have faith in that medium, and you have to press forward with that medium. You know? So think about that for a while as we move on, because I wanted to tell people all throughout this time during the riots that we need to stop and take a breath. And I think I said that in the last, yeah, you can watch it on YouTube, YTO. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but any medium, like I said, any medium can be used. But if we could, no problem. But if we use any medium, like I was saying before, we didn't have to consistently come back and consistently impound ourselves with what I felt was a little bit of insanity. I think when we started these riots, these protests that ended up becoming riots, and we saw that these protests started to become riots on the first couple of days, I thought that we could stop back and start to use a medium instead of our voices and our bodies. That we can pull back a little bit and make sure that some of these groups and some of these people who wanted to bring up the bad side, the violence, would step back because they would be left alone without the support of those people who didn't want to start that violence. They wouldn't be able to hide behind those faces because many of these people were hiding behind those faces because some people were wearing masks. And the ability that we have right now for people to wear masks opened up a door of all kind of things that we could have had happen, and so I thought to myself that there could be any medium that we can use to solve any problem. But one of the things that I remembered from Victor Wooten is that even in music, we do one thing. In music, every instrument has its part in a song. And when we all come together unified to create a song and make a song happen, there are times when certain instruments play and they play a melody, or they play a harmony, or they connect and they play duets and answer and recalls and stuff. But during, a call and answer, or they play together simultaneously and make one type of symphony or presence. But in that same sense, there are times when instruments rest. You see, because for music to grow within inside of us, for music to branch out and push us into the next phase of our stage, should I say, for us to get from one stage to the next, whether it be from the beginning of music to the end, it's a journey. Like our journey. Just like a journey, there's another side to this. When I look at nature, I see this all the time. And it goes back to that idea that there are people in nature, or there are things in nature that we have taken from to create music. We've listened to the birds, we listened to the wind, we listened to the animals and the trees, and we've taken that and we've all made this beat that nature has. And even Victor Wooten talks about this in his book, The Music Lesson. I'm going to have to bring that down and be one of my lessons as well, because I talk about this a lot. He talks about the beat between things and how they relate to each other and how they make things happen. But there also needs to be some kind of space, because space is necessary for things to grow. You know what I mean? And I thought about that when I was thinking about these riots. The riots, and how can we stop these riots? Well, it's time to stop the protests. And if you saw my not last Sunday, the Sunday before episode, the one that I didn't do anything afterwards on Monday, then you might notice that one of my last things was like, everybody just stay home. There were a couple of reasons why I wanted everybody to stay home. One, I had said a couple of weeks ago in my transmute hate lesson, and that something about the transmuting hate, that we were going to end up in a stage of possibly rioting to the point where the army might be called in and we might end up in martial law. We were pretty close to that. Good thing people took certain steps, and governors and city leaders, I'm so glad you took certain steps with how you utilize the National Guard and how you utilized the presence of the military, because of you using the presence of people and things that way. I think it was so much more important to how we have quelched some of this violence. You know what I mean? Unfortunately, there was a lot of destruction in it. And for those people who kept saying, this is what killed me, anybody who kept saying, property is not as valuable as a life, you got to really understand something. You don't know the history behind the people who had to pay for that property. You don't know the history behind the people who had worked that property. Let's say if it was me and I was the owner of that property and I was feeding a few families, not just here and around the world, you might have affected my ability to feed some people, which could have affected their lives. Not their livelihood, their lives. You don't know. You don't know what's going on. You don't know the story to anything. You know what I'm saying? And that's some of that privilege that really upsets me. That same privilege is the same privilege where people were out there saying to themselves, this experience, I'm so glad to be a part of this experience. You know what I mean? What do you mean you're glad to be a part of an experience? You know, a protest is not an experience. A protest was out there to solve an issue. I mean, to me, I felt like we should have been doing more vigils, you know, like candlelight vigils in reverence of these people's lives instead of protest. But protest did get the message across to lawmakers. You know, it always gets the message across to lawmakers, but that still does not change the fact of how people feel. You see, as I've been saying to people, this has been ingrained in people from times way before. This has been ingrained in people since time began. And it will always stay in people, even when we're the same skin complexion. Even if we all were the same skin complexion, all had the same type of hair, somebody would be like, wow, look at his eyes, his nose, his mouth, or her nose, her mouth, or their nose, their mouth, or the fact that there is a difference between he, she, and they today and our time. There's somebody's always going to say something or have something to say because opinions are like assholes and everybody's got one. It's as simple as that. And those opinions, when they become 150 or more people, branch into separate opinions. Which I'm still in shock that we have a bipartisan nation. At this point, we should have a multi-partisan nation. You know, there shouldn't be a bipartisan nation. That's like, seemed like it's forced to me. You know, there should be, I mean, because of how people think in each party and because of how people act in each party, I feel like there really is no unity. But the strangest thing is that in the end, there was unity. There was unity in a way that maybe I can't necessarily fully condone. I mean, I mean that with all my heart. There was some unity that I could not condone because a lot of people were out there for the wrong reasons. But even those who were out there for the wrong reasons, even if they were being peaceful, a lot of people were out there for the wrong reasons. You know, a lot of people were out there just to say they were out there, just to say they were a part of it and say they had a belief, because when they go home and later on 20, 30 years from now, they'll be able to tell their grandchildren that they were at the protest and that they're not racist. You know, I mean, don't get me wrong. Some people, that was their goal. That was their mission. That was their dream. And that was their reasoning. Some people felt like they needed to because other people were. Some people felt like they were angry because they've been locked in and they feel like they're being persecuted. They're part of the minority. Some people felt like this is the only way they can stand up because this is the only way they can have something to say because they've been locked up in their homes for weeks as well. Some people felt like this is the only thing they could do because they felt like they've been trapped in their own thought process as well. You see, when this happens, when people go through this, it's challenging. It's challenging. I mean, people see it on the news and they want to be a part of it and they feel like they're full of FOMO. They see it on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube, and they go crazy. Nowadays, it's worse because we have immediate access to find out what's going on immediately, and we use the media to have access, have instant access. And when I say media, you know, I don't say media like I hear on Fox News the other day, or heard on Fox News the other day during the 5. He said the media did not talk enough about the tragic deaths during the riots or the violence that happened to people during the riots. And I went, well, you know, because the media are individuals like us and they look at what is popular for them. If you're talking about the media, but when I talk about the media, I talk about all the media. I'm not talking about just the press media. I am talking about the media as a medium. Everything. This is a media. This is a piece of media. When it's used, it is a piece of media. When it is put on paper and is used to write an essay that describes something and tells something, and that essay ends up being something read to a nation, and that essay ends up being in a president's library, it is a form of propaganda media. You see, you got to, we have to understand this. Whenever I say you got to understand, remember, you means I'm pointing a finger this way. Unless you see me go, you got to understand like this with a full hand like this, that is for you, direction for you. But if I say you got to, that means we got to. You see what I'm saying? Because we have to understand that. We have to look and dig deep. You know, I did a little research this week, and I said I was going to do that. I was going to look into the big book because I had it over there, and I hardly look at it. And I looked at some of the things that have happened in the 12 steps. The 12 steps, you know, are some of the things we use to actually motivate us to get to the next level. The reason why the 12 steps work for Alcoholics Anonymous when they are done are the same steps that entrepreneurs use. Some of the same steps. I mean, they're translated totally different, and I'm gonna break that down one day. Because I was reading them and I was like, but that's doing this. And I was like, you see how these things relate? Knowledge is freaking power. Knowledge is, you know, you can use the 12 steps if you look at it in a total different light of how it is. You can use the 12 steps to actually become a billionaire. I was like, what? What? If you look at it right, everything's perspective and everything's how you see things. And if you read enough and you intake enough knowledge, you don't have to be there worried about unity, because there was unity. There was unity. Many people stood together. You know what I mean? But not everyone there had the knowledge behind them. Some stood or sat or laid or went limp for many different reasons. You see what I'm saying? Like I said, because sometimes being right is wrong. And maybe I was wrong about people having to go home. You know, because, yeah, sometimes being right is wrong. But I think part of what I was being right is that if, we don't know yet, I could be wrong altogether, but if more people get ill because they did not stay home, then I don't know how much that was worth it. I mean, because you see, to me, I feel like the change in America is not going to be the same change that people want, people desire. It's going to take months. It's going to take days. It's going to take weeks for that change to become something of importance. And I think you all are missing my points here on these, because I think, let me go back. Like I said, many stood united or laid, but sometimes being right is wrong. You only miss one slide, so don't worry about it. You know, but that's what gives me mixed emotions, because sometimes in the actual idea of this, we are feeling like we're right about having to do something, but we could be wrong about what we did. And I hope I'm wrong about this. I hope we didn't just spread COVID-19 further than it was through this type of relationship. And I feel bad because I'm looking at that angle, not even the angle that some of these people just lost their full livelihoods because of the riots behind it. I do. Some people been in the hospital. I mean, there's a police officer. Some of y'all, I don't care about a police officer, but there's a police officer, whether he was good, bad, or not. What if he was one of the good ones? His head was busted open here in LA and he went to the hospital. What if he never did anything vile or wrong to anybody? You know what I'm saying? Intention versus impact. What if the person's intention was to make him fear and never want to hurt blacks again, but then this fear that was instilled into him turns him into somebody who joins a hate group? Now you've gotten the reverse effect. One negative thing can change something so positive. One negative thing. I've done it. I've done one negative thing and made somebody hate me for life. I've done several things and made people hate me. Hey, by the way, thank you for the follow. It didn't show me on this screen that you gave me a follow. YTYOP. I know you might be still in the chat or you might be watching this on YouTube, but thank you for the follow. I really appreciate that. For some reason, it didn't pop up in the chat, but I saw it over here on Streamlabs when I looked way far. You know what I mean? I really do appreciate that. I think, with that being said, I think we need to kind of basically appreciate the people around us, appreciate the people who work with us or pay attention to us or listen to us or talk with us or share things with us or give us a piece of their souls. Because the more we give people a piece of our soul and they give us a piece of our soul, the more empathy we have. And that empathy is important because that empathy has us try to understand each other better and try to communicate with each other better. You know, this riot, I really, really do. As I've been saying this whole time, I got mixed emotions about this riot. Really do. I mean, this protest and riot. I mean, that's what I mean. It's even become in my head a riot more than it's become a protest. And I've been trying to get it out of my head because it's been stained as a riot to me by what I've seen out there and what I've been delivered at home. How things have been portrayed through the use of media. Not media as in the press, the use of digital media to do it. I want to remind y'all, whenever I say media, I don't refer to media as the press. I refer to the devices, the actual tools, whether it be audio, video, pen and pad. You know what I mean? Whatever medium that was used, the medium is the important part here, not the people behind it, because the people are going to be people. The people are going to be people because we're going to look for things that we feel are important to us. So everybody's viewpoint is everybody's viewpoint. So when people compete on viewpoints and say, well, how come the media didn't do that and you are actually a member of the media, you need to shut your trap. I just feel like it. You're going to get on a thing and get upset because it's happening in your neighborhood, which never happened before, which this happens every day in neighborhoods that I grew up in. So you need to shut your trap and take it like a man and stop whining and complaining like a 12-year-old child that the media didn't pay enough attention. You know how many people die in America today? Die in America in neighborhoods that I've grown up in, that are never put on the media. Some are not even given obituary rights. And you're complaining that people in your neighborhood would hurt or harmed and the media didn't spend enough time on it because it was a riot? A riot that was secondary to a protest about a police brutality on a black man. Crybaby. Be a crybaby. Cry on the news. Cry on the 5. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes, Fox, y'all need to stop being so privileged and wake up to the world that you live in. But that's my little rant on that, because a lot of people were not only out there to back up those who were protesting, they were out there for self. Were you out there for self? Please, if you were out there for self, please be honest with yourself. You don't have to tell me. Take a moral inventory. I mean, I took this out of the 12 steps. 12 steps in Alcoholics Anonymous. Take a moral inventory of yourself, because you got to do the same thing when you decide you want to become an entrepreneur. Did you really do what you did for whatever reason you did it? And are you really doing whatever you're doing to get to the next level for the reason you say you're doing it for? That is a moral inventory. Please take a moral inventory of yourself and make sure you're doing whatever you're doing for the right reasons. Did you go out there for self, or did you go out there for community? You see what I'm saying? My idea is that we need to be out there like this little girl. She didn't go out there with any need and thought for herself. I know that for a fact because she's a little girl. She may not identify as a little girl when she gets older, but right now in our aspect of describing her, she's a little girl and she's going out there because somebody in her community was harmed and she wants to help. She wants to help. If you went out there with that in mind, I have no qualms with you. Some of you went out there with ulterior motives. And I don't care what you say to me, your body language tells different, because I learned something when I went into the South. I learned that what some of you say in LA ain't what you mean. What some of you say in this more liberal society ain't what you really mean, because in the South, they tell me how they really feel. And they tell me with the same body language that you tell me, they give me the real. Understand where I'm coming from. See what I'm saying? Gotta understand where I'm coming from. And I've seen this in a lot of conversations. I've seen this in schools, institutions. I know it, I see it, I let it go by, and I laugh sometimes about it. You know what I mean? I get angry about it too, because it's racism right in my face, and I see it as it's coming towards me, and they think they're hiding it, but they ain't hiding shit. As simple as it is. But like I said, it's a mental change. And that's why I said that was the last thing I had to say about racism in one of my things out there. Because the reason why it has to be the last thing is because it has been something that's been going on since Moors. Since Moors came to teach Vikings and Europeans about being civilized and stop sleeping with pigs and live in a house and separate your animals and do certain things to make your body, and teaching them science and nature, how to cook things right, how to do things so that they stop being sick. Those who accepted this information started to say, no, we built this information, because it belongs to those people who run history. You see what I'm saying? Who maintain history. And every time in history, you will see property and things of value and historical nature destroyed. And when those things are destroyed, there is no left record of it. You know what I'm saying? When people don't have a record of things left over, then they don't become a part of history. And that is seriously how the people, this thing about racism and this thing about racism, how it connects to African Americans or blacks, has evolved. But it's not just been that, it's been passed around the country. And I'm glad that I heard that it's been going on since before that, because even in China, people felt like if you were out in the sun too long, that you needed to your skin needed to be lighter so you could be of more of an upper class, because people worked out in the fields versus people worked out in the fields versus people worked indoors. So there's always been this classist action of skin tone. And the darker the skin, the idea is that they must be out in the sun more. You know, so there is this idea that's going to continue to go on, because it is part of human nature to divide ourselves between each other. This is what I've been getting for. You know what I'm saying? Right now, we need to stop dividing each other. Take this unity, do something more constructive, because right now is time for us to repair and recover. You know what I'm saying? You see this guy up here doing his cool pose, part of this critical race theory I'm talking about. I've got to be hard against the cops. I got my cool pose, this pose going on. You know what I'm saying? You know, this cool pose, unfortunately, separates you from the rest of the people around you. You see what I'm saying? Because there are people there who want to do good and not show off on a destroyed police vehicle, which takes from our taxpayers' money, which costs our society and community so much more, especially after a pandemic. You see, property hurts us. Property damage hurts us in the long run, just as much as a police officer killing a black man on video hurts us. But it also helps us. You see what I mean? Because me as a black man has said for years, finally, somebody caught this shit on video. You see what I'm saying? Finally, somebody can see what we're going through. Finally, somebody can wake up. That's what I feel, and that's what I protest for. But when I see people go out here and protest for this idea that, oh, wow, you know, this is just an experience and that Black Lives Matter, but I'm not black and I don't really understand what you're going through, sometimes it hurts. I'm not saying anything. I really appreciate the support of those out there who are not black and supported us. I'm not saying anything against that. But some of those people out there, some of y'all are out there just for self. It has nothing to do with you supporting a community. It has nothing to do with you fighting against racial prejudice. It has nothing to do with you fighting against police brutality. Because I know some of you from all kind of races done felt like this too. I know some of you from like hoods in Detroit. I know some of you from hoods in Columbus, Georgia. I know some of you from hoods in Louisiana. I know some of you from hoods in Florida. I know some of you from hoods in Texas. I know some of you from hoods in New York. I know some of you from hoods in Vegas. I know some of you from hoods in San Diego, Oakland. You know what I'm saying? I know some of you from hoods all over America have felt the tension of how some police officers can be, because the police officers are a club. You see what I'm saying? And once you get in that club, like I said before, and transmute hate, I was being arrested as a child, and treated and abused by police officers. And it wasn't just white police officers. It was black police officers, Latinx police officers, and they were doing it looking up to the white cop. Why? Because it's a club. It's a club about class. And if you move up in that club about class, just like in the military, you know, there are certain things that we got to do. We got to do to kind of build ourselves up and make ourselves stronger in this club. You know what I'm saying? So that we can feel like we are part of this club. So in order for us to be a part of this club, we got to do things like members in this club, right? And sometimes we got to turn our head. Did you see the way the paramedics worked the scene? They came up to him, they checked him, they put their finger on the post and noticed that he was passed out, but they did not make the other officer get up off of him. You knew he was passed out. It took you a second to say, look, you need to get up off him. We need to apply CPR to him right now. We need to wake this guy up. You see what I'm saying? That is a natural step in saving a life. And you're a paramedic. That's the first thing you do. Every paramedic I ever seen, that's the first thing they do. When they come, they check a post and they see a person's passed out. Responsiveness, breathing, bleeding, shock, fractures, burns, concussions. We learned that in the military. So for me to notice that and recognize that as a human being, former veteran of the United States Army, I know that police officers are trained in that, and paramedics are most definitely trained in those steps. Are they responsive? He's not responsive. Get off of him. That should have been the first fucking thing he said. Excuse my language. That should have been the first he said. You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to take the F word out of here. Whew. But that was one of the moments. That was one of the moments when you deal with what you deal with after seeing it. And we all deal with what we deal with after seeing it. But a cool pose because of it? What does this cool pose have to do? This cool pose that this guy on this car have to do with George Floyd sacrifice? It doesn't. And so we need to be out there repairing and recovering our community, not tearing it down some more. And we need to stop. We need to stop taking untrained protesters. When we go out to protest, you need to organize. The leads or the captains or whatever you want to call it on these protests need to be fully trained up on a regular basis. I don't care what movement. You don't just go out there and just do a protest. Y'all need to train these people up. And if you got to wait and pull people back so that you don't have these outside influencers causing all this havoc. You see what I'm saying? Take that space. Space is necessary for things to grow, folks. You know what I'm saying? These outside influencers do one thing. They only come in to destroy. And they only come in to get free stuff. You know what I'm saying? And they come in on the offensive. And that takes away so much of what civil disobedience is all about. Civil disobedience is not about coming up on the offensive. It's not civil at all. It's coming in and exposing those 3 types of hate we talked about in a previous lesson. And I'm bringing that back. I am bringing that back. Those 3 types of hate we talked about in medium.com. All right. Except we're only going to talk about one of those 3 types of hate. We're going to talk about the low-key hate. You see, because people who come out there with those last 3 things, to that outside influencers attitude, that need to destroy and get free stuff, and that they're on the offensive and they're not civil, they come in with that low-key hate, that faker hate. We're here to support you. We're here to back you up. We're here to be around you. We're here to secretly hate on you, and we're secretly your frenemy. But you didn't know that. I'm bringing that back for a reason. Because other people are out there for the wrong reasons one more time. They're out there for themselves. And if you're out there for the right reasons for the community, you need help. You need help dealing with what you're going through. You need help helping those out there for the wrong reasons dealing with what they're going through. And you need help in trying to figure out a way to help rebuild our community. And I think it stems from understanding empathy. And that's why I wanted to really bring this back to us really having a little bit more of emotional intelligence. It's hard. It's hard. Right now, we were, like I said before, you were stuck inside from a pandemic, getting angry, losing jobs, losing your ability to take care of your family, your friends, losing your ability to comfort each other. Comfort, just alone. Losing your ability to have unity. And then we started to protest so that we can get out and be unified in a city, in a nation, just because the heat was coming and we wanted to get past this heat wave and we've been locked up for too long. You know what I'm saying? And then in the midst of that, we see something that just disturbs us, that takes away from this, that takes away from our ability to say that who is doing what's right and who is doing what's wrong out there. Because 90% of the time, we overlook this little bit of right and wrong, this little bit of hate and dissension that's been going on, you know? And to be honest, it's not really specifically racial. It may be in this case racial, but it does happen in all communities. The same stuff. It's more classist. Racial can be added into this, you know, because to be honest with you, there are people of mixed race that were actually doing this crime. The officers weren't all white. You see what I mean? But all officers in this incident, I believe, should be persecuted for their crimes or should be convicted for their crime because they were all part of it, whether it be involuntary or not. But with that being said, for us to deal with it, we have to have a lot more emotional intelligence. And that's the book I'm here to talk about. Because we got to remember, intent, impact, whatever we do, the same thing. Whether it be those officers' intent to kill him or not, the impact of what they did caused much disturbance across this country. A lot of civil unrest. And as we are unable to rest and unable to deal with what we're going through, hey, hooligan, welcome back, and everything else that we're dealing with, you know what I'm saying? We need to make sure that what we do, what we intend to do, has the right impact. And like those people who went out there and said, you know, got on the news and said this, that hurt. They don't understand how much that hurts me. Got on the news and said, I am so happy to be a part of this. This is making history. This is history in the making. Being out here, and I want to be able to tell my family members later on that I was out here and made history by protesting for George Floyd. How does that help Floyd and his family? George is gone. That doesn't stop the problem. That's all about self. We need the emotional intelligence to be more empathetic. We need the emotional intelligence to be less sympathetic. Because that's what I feel like that is. That's sympathy. And that's what that is. Oh, we're out here showing sympathy. That's what you do for a 1,000,000-man march. That's not what you do in reverence of someone's death. To respect and honor that person. No matter what that person is, a life is important. And with that being said, I want to jump into this part of this chapter 7 that I want to really read from, and it talks about empathy in it. And I was talking to somebody about this earlier because I think we get caught up in understanding empathy in a lot of ways, but we need a little shock to our system to really understand the power of empathy and what it can do. In chapter 7, the roots of empathy in emotional intelligence talk about several things like alexithymic people who can't feel emotion from other people. So they don't understand and they don't know when people are going through different things, and that doesn't help them in being able to understand people better. It makes it more challenging for them to connect with people as much as they want to and as much as they try to. It talks about how empathy unfolds. It talks about the empathy of a well-tuned child. I'm going to get to the important part, but I want to read through these chapters real quick so you understand. It talks about the cost of misattunement, and it also talks about the neurology of empathy. But this is the part that I really think is important, and I'm about to really get into a lot of this in this, so stay with me here. When it talks about empathy and ethics, the roots of altruism, all right? And it talks about how empathy affects moral judgment, and empathy underlies many facets of moral judgment and action. One is empathetic in anger, which John Stuart Mill describes as the unnatural feeling of retaliation, rendered by the intelligent and sympathetic sympathy applicable to those hurts which wound us through wounding others. You see what I'm saying? What we saw when we saw George Floyd yell out from his heart, "I can't breathe." We saw something that made us all feel very empathetic for what he was going through. We all felt the hurt in that. And when we saw him continually struggle, we all felt that. Many of us, like me right now, our eyes teared up. You know what I'm saying? Many of us felt those times that we were in the same position where we couldn't breathe, or we were being held down and we were being broke down and struggled because there were 2-3 officers holding us down when we were handcuffed. Not even just handcuffed, hog-tied. Being hog-tied with a knee on your neck. Things that were still around 30 years ago. Things that were still happening. It also talks about, in another instance, which empathy leads to moral action, where an innocent bystander may come out and say something. We saw this during the George Floyd. Innocent bystanders coming with their camera. Innocent bystanders yelling at the police saying, "Get your knee off his neck. He says he can't breathe." People standing out to do something, but were they doing anything? They were intervening on behalf of the victim. There's another side of this, because a lot of people don't get this other side of this. What would it be if there was no empathy in life? You know, those people that with alexithymic people, alexithymic, I can't even say it. Those people who can't feel what other people are feeling, or can't understand what other people are feeling in general, they live without empathy. What would it be like if our world was without empathy? This section right here is the most significant part of this that really blew my mind. Life without empathy, the mind of the molester, the morals of the sociopath. Wow. This is the world we live in. And there are a lot of sociopaths out there, and there are a lot of molesters, abusers. Let's jump into this, okay? All right. There is a part of when people lack empathy, they commit mean-spirited crimes. But there is, like, they were talking about this psychological fault line that is common with rapists, child molesters, and many perpetrators of family violence alike. They're incapable of empathy. This inability to feel their victims' pain allows them to tell themselves lies that encourages their crime. For rapists, the lie includes women really want to be raped. And if she resists, she's just playing hard to get. For molesters, I'm not hurting the child, just showing love. Or this is good discipline. You know what I mean? Or this is just another form of affection. Excuse me. Let me make sure I get that right. So for child molesters, they're saying, I'm not hurting the child, just showing love. Or this is just another form of affection. For physical abusers or physical abusive parents, this is just good discipline. You know what I'm saying? Physical abusive parents, I mean, don't get me wrong, I grew up with that, and I feel like sometimes we need to be put in check, but, that was what my parents were, my mom was telling, this is good discipline. He needs the discipline while I whoop his ass. You know what I'm saying? Don't get me wrong, that's just what it is. You know what I mean? And this helped her do it while she felt pain afterwards, because she felt bad afterwards. Don't get me wrong, I saw it in my mother's eyes sometimes. You know what I mean? These self-justifications are all collected from what people being treated for these problems say they have told themselves, and they were brutalizing their victims or preparing to do so. And this is part of the reason why my mother stopped doing those things, because it hurt her. But some people, the switch is off completely. They don't have that empathy. They don't have that stop. You know what I mean? With their empathy gone, it helps for them to do something worse. I didn't mark the area, so I'm scanning through real quick. Oh yeah, right here. This is that part that really stands out to me. Now, while there may be some small hope of instilling some sense of empathy in offenders such as child molesters, there is much less for another criminal type, the psychopath. More recently called the sociopath, as a psychiatric diagnosis. Okay, psychopaths are notorious for being both charming and completely without remorse. For even the most cruel and heartless acts, psychopathy, I can't say that word for some reason, the incapacity to feel empathy or compassion or any sort or the least twinge of conscience in one of the most perplexing and emotional emotional defects. The heart of the psychopath's coldness seems to lie in the inability to make anything more than the shallowest of emotional connections. The cruelest of criminals, such as sadistic serial killers who delight in the suffering of these victims before they die, are the epitome of psychopathy. All right. Psychopaths are also glib liars, willing to say anything to get what they want, and they manipulate their victims' emotions with the same cynicism. Consider the performance of Pharaoh, a 17-year-old member of the Los Angeles gang who crippled a mother and her baby in a drive-by shooting, which he describes with more pride than remorse. Now listen to this. Driving in a car with Leon Bing, who was writing a book about the Los Angeles gangs and Crips and the Crips and the Bloods, Pharaoh wants to show off. Pharaoh tells Bing he is going to look crazy at the two dudes in the next car. As Bing recounts the exchange, the driver, sensing that someone is looking at him, glances over at my car. His eyes connect with Pharaoh's, widen for an instant. Then he breaks the contact, looks down, and looks away. And there's no mistaking what I saw there in his eyes. It was fear. Pharaoh demonstrates a look. He flashed to the next car over for Bing. He looks straight at me, and everything about his face shifts and changes. As if by some trick and time lapse of photography, it becomes a nightmare face. That cool face becomes a different pose. That cool pose becomes a scare pose, all right? A different face. And you see, it becomes a nightmare face. And it is a scary thing to see. It tells you that if you return his stare, if you challenge this kid, you better be able to stand your ground. His look tells you that he doesn't care about anything, not your life, not even his. It's important. Our course of behavior is a complex. You know what I mean? We got all these complex crimes and guns, but really what I wanted to get into is that he also talks about these emotions and really digs in, and in this part he talks about in that time and in that change, maybe we do see this as something as he had to do this to protect himself in the hood. He had to do this to stand up in the hood. But there are instances that psychopaths take on the next level. And in this book, he really talks about, Daniel Goleman talks about the fact that this is what's the scary part, and I'm not going to read it, I'm just going to tell you about it. The fact that some psychopaths at a certain point in their psychopathy have this change in this biological change. That's what it was. And this biological change would allow their body to, instead of become anxious and tense up. Oh, wow. Anxious and tense up. Instead of that happening, they become more calm and more relaxed. And when they become more calm and more relaxed, they're able to control their situation a little bit more with less empathy. Their empathy is gone. They're calm, more relaxed. So let's say the man that abuses his wife and he's thinking about doing some verbal abuse at this time, he may be tensed up, angry at himself about something, but he can carry that on to his wife by abusing her and calming down his tension. I was like, wow, you can calm down. Their tension is calmed down. Their energy is calmed down. And their heart rate lowers while they're abusing their victims. Their heart rate lowers while Dexter, when you talk, hey, what's up, motherfucker? When you talk about Dexter, you see that this happens. They go through his thought process as a psychopath, and the things that he does, he's calming. He's getting more calm and getting more patient and getting more understanding on how to murder people. And he's getting into this groove. The same groove that we use in music. When you get into the groove and you get into that rhythm, you know what I'm saying, and everything's working, we all have this ability that when we get into rhythms and grooves, we are really on point with the things that we do. And our missions are able to be accomplished. The same thing with psychopaths, sociopaths, murderers, killers, child abusers, molesters. The same thing is the same process of people when they don't have empathy. And if you look at that cop that was holding Floyd down, George Floyd down, he was pretty calm. He's pretty collected. He was able to make the other police calm around him. Yeah, it's his fault, and yeah, it's their fault as well, but nobody felt like there was anything wrong except for the onlooker who felt like they had to step in. Because in that sense, they felt empathy for George Floyd when he was saying he couldn't breathe. But the police officer didn't feel any empathy at all. And because he didn't feel any empathy, because he was in that cool, calm, collected mode, His whole psychological sense was totally different, and he was able to control the situation between the other officers and make them feel calm. I'm not saying that they're at fault. They should have had the common sense enough to stop him, or at least try to stop him. But you have to watch out for the sociopath, because the sociopath can control the situation and make things much worse. With that being said, remember, folks, no matter what we go through, sometimes it's up to us to take a step back. Take a step back, take some space, because like I said before, space is necessary for things to grow. And if we're going to grow, we need to take a step back and rebuild. We need to take a step back and look at what's going on. Yeah, we're angry. Yeah, we're upset. But without being upset, we need to look at this from a practical standpoint and try to see how we can all benefit from this. Not just from talking and words and people saying they're going to do stuff. Let's actually make some action happen. Some action happen that helps us benefit, whether it be educating all of us on how racism affects people, educating all of us on how we can make change in our community, educating all of us on how we can be better with each other and do things better with each other. Not everything is all about you. Not everything is all about me. But it is all about we. Try to remember that. This is Doc. I hope you enjoyed the lesson. Stay tuned for more in the Hotbox as I come back. As I come back next week with another lesson for you. This lesson was stay motivated. Sometimes space is the only thing that can help us stay motivated. That's why we need that emotional intelligence. You know what I mean? So that we can go from just being there, thinking about climbing up, going from climbing up to accepting where we're at and what we're going through to advance, then going from that to taking action. And while we take action, looking around and seeing that we have to assess our progress while the haters start to compound on. And as we get ready to double down after we assess the process, haters continue to compound upon us. We got to look forward and continue to double down so we can get to the next level of transmuting that hate. Once we transmute that hate, we can start promoting our skills. And as we promote our skills, we got to continue to stay motivated so we can make it to the next level. The next lesson is lesson number 9. We're continually going through these lessons, folks. And Motherflocker says, I'll have to watch this back. Take care, man. Real spill as always. Thanks, man. I appreciate that, Motherflocker. I really do. You know, I try to keep it real. I try to keep sharing the knowledge and the truth. And the lessons come out again on YouTube. So if you ever want to just go and check it out through YouTube, you don't have time to check it out now because you might be drawn. You can check it out on YouTube and listen to it as well, you know, later on down the line. But as I always say, stay tuned for more in the Hot Box with Doc Real. I'm out of here. Peace. Before I get out of here, I do want to say one thing. If you or somebody you know is struggling with suicide, please make sure you, I didn't post it up, I was supposed to, make sure you stop by, oops, hold on. Make sure you stop by one of the suicide hotline. You stop by and you call 1-800-273-8255. That's the suicide prevention hotline. That's 1-800-273-8255. You'd think I'd have it memorized by now, but I don't necessarily have it memorized, and I didn't give y'all the link to emotional intelligence before I went. That's another reason why I must do this. Let me see. Stay positive, stay motivated. Did I put? No, I didn't even put the link to emotional intelligence. So let me get you a link to emotional intelligence, and that's going to be is it not working? There it goes. All right, so that's going to be, here it is. I didn't give you all the link to that. Open a new tab. Terrible today. Usually I'm doing something good. Usually I'm doing something good, but I can't get it right somewhere. All right, so here is the link. This book is called Worldwide. Got to go worldwide. And there's the Amazon link right below it. Please make sure you stop by and you grab that book. It's a wellspring of information. Daniel Goleman, this book is talked about by a lot of people. This book has really been talked about by a lot of people because we all need emotional intelligence so that we can balance out our lives. We can balance out the world around us. We can balance out our families. We can balance. It just helps. It helps. Just like we need financial intelligence, we need emotional intelligence. Put them all together, and continue to make change in your world and your life. Continue to take a moral inventory of what you're doing in your life and see where you can make change so you can go after your dreams. Because I heard somebody today say that your dreams chose you. No, we chose our dreams. And our dreams are possible because we chose them from what we know about ourselves. Now, go out there and use what we know about ourselves to make those dreams happen. This is Doc. Stay tuned for more In the Hot Box with Doc Real. I'm out of here. Peace. I didn't even do a full salute. That's a peace. There we go. Do it right. Let's get out of here. Real TV.